Hi, everyone. It's a great pleasure being here at Coalesce 2025. So my name is Nuno, and I'm working as a data architect with Siemens, mainly in the sales domain. So this is actually not my first time as a speaker at Coalesce, because I had the opportunity some years ago to go on stage together with the corporate IT within my organization. And back then, we were just getting started with our journey towards the cloud, right? So just giving our first steps with dbt and Snowflake. And at that stage, we're basically here to show some of the good results we had with some projects and processes we had back then in place. And now, fast forward some years, my journey at Siemens has changed a bit. So I moved more towards the direction of the business, and this is the kind of point of view, this is the kind of angle I want to share with all of you today. This is why I'm bringing Siemens DI approach with dbt. Now, even before I jump into the dbt specifics of our approach, and before I show you how we handle dbt at this ridiculous scale, we are talking about one of the top 3 most complex, let's call it accounts, within dbt, and we actually checked that together with dbt Labs. I wanted to take a moment to share and to introduce Siemens with all of you, because I'm pretty sure there's someone in the audience that still thinks Siemens is this company who's selling these old cell phones, right? And this is definitely not the case. This is definitely not the Siemens of today. Just to get it started, so Siemens is strategically divided into 4 business areas. We start with smart infrastructure, for example. This is the business area which is combining the real and the digital world. So you can, for example, see it in all these commercial buildings outside, and I'm pretty sure like the one we are at right now. You can find it in sensors like firefighting, air conditioning, all these types of components that are meant to also manage the buildings, but also bridging them together. So this is Siemens SI. Then we have as well Healthineers, and I think you can already guess this is related with healthcare. So all this hospital equipment, diagnostic tools, all of that in this area of health, that's what Healthineers is taking care. And then we have as well Siemens Mobility, and Siemens Mobility is the one responsible for building up the trains, the rail infrastructure, also has done some advancements in the space of intelligent traffic system, basically in other words, all that keeps us moving. So that's with Siemens Mobility. And then we have digital industry, so Siemens DI. This is the business area which is combining factory automation together with software, together with motion control. So it provides a portfolio of all this software, hardware, and different system and components that are meant to enable the digital transformation of, for example, factories, and also the industrial processes. And this is actually the business area where I'm coming from, so Siemens DI. And let me just give you some more concrete examples of products, appliances, where you might find Siemens DI. So we all know, well, we are aware of cars, right? The cars we drive every day, they were most probably designed using Siemens software. And they were not only designed, but they were also built in factories which are running in Siemens automation. And there's one really exciting number I have to share with you today. And for me, it's not about the 70,000 plus people working for DI. It's not even about the 18.5 billion in revenue of last year. For me, as impressive as this one also might sound, is also not being the #1 in industrial software and automation. The incredible number I have to share with all of you today is this 1/3 of machines worldwide running on a Siemens controller. So basically what this one means is that Siemens is already most probably of your daily lives, right? So even if you don't see the logo in every single component, that's most probably already there. And all these conversations just to say, so the question I hope is right now rising on your minds is, how do we make sure that we deploy efficient data and AI solutions when we're talking about such a vast, globally distributed and diverse organization such as this one? And my answer to this starts with our cooperation model. So this is aiming to connect IT and the business, and this relies on a hub and spoke model. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with this kind of architecture, with this kind of cooperation model. For those who aren't, so this is basically relying on a central entity, which is usually called the hub. And you can see it, for example, as the corporate IT or the central IT within an organization. And it aims to provide all these foundational services for data integration, data storage, analytics tools like back-end, front-end. Basically, in other words, what this means is they are there to provide and to set the standards, and to provide us the backbone for the whole infrastructure, right? And then we have the surrounding spokes, and you can see the spokes as, for example, the ITs within the businesses, those ones I mentioned before. And the whole responsibility of the spokes is to provide for data collection, data modeling, data quality, all the governance as well within their own data domains, within their own business areas. And while the hub is incredibly critical in all this model and all this cooperation model, it's actually obviously about the scope I'm here to speak about today. And I just wanted to give you some more concrete examples, some more structured ways how we structure our teams. I think we are in a time where we've been talking about data mesh for quite some years now. I think everyone in this room knows exactly what I mean with a data domain, right? So we're talking about sales and finance, procurement, logistics, you know, so all of those. And what we always try to do with our teams, the way we structure them, is always according to these principles. So let's call it a domain-focused setup. And we do this because we believe that by doing so, we are empowering our experts in order to develop deep and specialized knowledge within their own data domains, within their own business areas. And because we follow such an approach where we are directly connected with the stakeholders, with the business, it also allows us to gain profound understanding of what are their goals, what are their challenges, what are their problems. And because we live in a model that clearly defines and splits what are the tasks that should be handled by the hub, so let's call it the central tasks, from the domain-oriented tasks which should be handled by the spoke, that helps us to innovate, to create solutions way much faster and with way more agility. Now, as you've just seen our cooperation model, what does this embedded approach mean in the way we drive the business value, right? So what we always try to make with our teams is to make sure that we specialize in developing and implementing cutting AI and data analytics solutions. So basically our core mission isn't just about creating cool tech and cool stuff, right? It's obviously also about that, otherwise what would be the fun of it? But our core mission is to make sure that we create value through innovative techniques and data-driven approaches. And a great enabler of all of this is something you'll keep on hearing me saying a lot during this minute or the next minutes, which is being directly embedded into the businesses. And it's only by doing such a cooperation where we, together with the business, are deciding which ways we have to avoid the so-called common pitfalls that the data initiatives sometimes suffer from. And the first one I want to mention is this unaligned objectives. So data projects often lack alignment with the teams, right, with the business. And because we have such an approach where we are directly connected with them, we have a seat at the table with the stakeholders. We understand their needs, we understand their problems, we know exactly where they want to be. So that's why we have this structural alignment. Then second thing is this unclear problem domain. So basically when IT is far removed from the business, it's obviously hard to have an understanding of what is the problem domain. Whereas with our structured approach, because we are there for them, because we know what they need, we are able to create high impact and truly feasible solutions, obviously in the space of data and AI. And the third one I want to mention is this trap of the so-called stack overvalue. So in my opinion, it's so easy these days to get caught up in the latest technology only for the technology's sake, right? Whereas we always try to put our focus on a successful implementation and to deliver this measurable value, rather than just create something on top of the fanciest, newest technology which is on the market. And the question now is, how do we make sure that this collaboration between IT and business leads to tangible results? And the way we do this is always trying to follow this structured methodology. This is nothing but a roadmap that we always go one by one, so step by step, in order to increase our chances of delivering this so-called real measurable value. And let us go through it together, so step by step. Step one, it's the clear definition of the what. What are the problems, what are the tasks, what are the associated pain points that the user wants to solve? And because I'm coming from a sales department, and I think everyone in the room knows what a lead is. Let's think about a problem of the low lead conversion rate, right? So this is obviously making it very difficult to hit the targets in the end of the year. Then on a second step, we also need to identify what are the affected processes and products with this pain point. Coming back to the lead example, let's think about, for example, lead qualification as well as data management in CRM. Then on the third step, we need to brainstorm what are the possible solutions in the space of data and AI that we can create in order to address this issue. So I'm thinking about, for example, process mining, generative text, forecasting, prediction, so possible solutions in this regards. And coming back to our example from the leads, one good way to address this would be, for example, creating some kind of predictive way to see the probability of a lead to be converted. And then, after having this in mind, we also need, together with the business, to estimate what is the business value. So is it becoming more cost efficient? Is it bringing or increasing the revenue in the end of the year? Is it becoming more sustainable? Will it drop on the costs? So what is it? And then we also, so after having the estimated value, we also need to assess for complexity. So will it cost a lot, be it in terms of time or money? And after having these two factors, we need to balance them out. And this is how we then need to identify, and this is what we have to identify, what are the use cases that we need to move forward, what are the use cases we should prioritize over others, and which are the use cases that do not make sense with our current scope and we need to just drop. This is how we really increase the chances of delivering measurable value. And because I just talked about the value we deliver, I thought it would make sense to bring concrete examples from my own domain, right? So from sales. And on the left-hand side, I just gathered some of the examples we have in the data analytics space. And on the other side, we have the, let's call it AI-driven approaches, AI-driven use cases that we have. But let us start by the sales performance. So this is a project, this is a data product where we gather all the sales performance related data, right? So you can imagine this is meant to be used and seen, checked by higher management within the sales department, where they can have insights about financial analysis, strategic planning, all of that for the entire organization. Then one second example is the point of sales. So this data product aims to consolidate what is the customer provided information with the Siemens product information. And the whole point of this data product is to precisely identify which products we are talking about. So we need to make sure that everyone downstream, every single solution, every single process, data product who is consuming from this, let's call it single source of truth, is talking exactly about the same product. Yeah, and I mean Siemens product in this case. Then we have sales data hierarchy. And to introduce this one, I would say, if not all, at least 99% of the projects we have in the data analytics space, they are in Snowflake in our case. And we obviously have planning data in the sales space coming from different other tools, right? And we need to bring this data and we need to provide it to the downstream projects. And I can tell you that 90% of the projects use at least one of the following hierarchies. So just to give you some examples, I'm talking about sales structure, territory ownership, customer assignments, all of that. And then we have the sales ecosystem. So this is nothing but a way to say we don't only provide data as a project to different other use cases. We sometimes also need to provide the data to sales tool. So sales tool we use, for example, Salesforce, Anaplan, Outreach, and this obviously needs to be unified and reliable data because there's sometimes even the pipeline where the data starts in Snowflake. We send it to Anaplan, they do their adjustments, their planning and so on, they send it back to Snowflake, and then we are the responsible ones to distribute it across different other projects. So it's a huge pipeline. And then to introduce the data-driven approaches, I thought it would make sense to bring something you could relate to, right? So even if you're not coming from a sales background, I think everyone here in this room knows what a sales representative is. And these examples I brought here, they are trying to address at least one of their issues. And let's start with Smart Sales 360. So this is a project that tries to address the challenge of a sales rep when he needs to have a full picture of a customer, right? Which is obviously not so easy. And it tries to address that in two ways. So the first way is to providing a dashboard where the sales rep can easily have an overview of all the information he needs from a given customer. And then on a second step, we also provide these AI-driven customer insights and next best actions. So I always struggle to say it's NBAs, you all know, which is obviously empowering then the sales rep to create the sales opportunities. And we have as well the smart pricing. And smart pricing is basically a product that aims to address the challenge of a sales rep when he needs to do discounts or pricing optimization, which you can imagine is not so easy because that's usually just relying on his current knowledge. And what this product does is basically creating AI-driven discount optimization and pricing adjustments in order to obviously enhance all the profitability for both parties, but also helping out the sales rep and empowering on doing the sales negotiations. And we have done sales newsletter. So this is trying again to address the issue of a sales rep to have customer data. So you know that this customer data is sometimes spread across different dashboards, across different sources. And what this sales newsletter product does is basically empowering the sales rep to create personalized, concise insights that are sent directly to his mailbox. So this is not only helping him in a negotiation, but also help him on the blind spots he might have, for example. And then as the last one, we have Sally. Sally is our chatbot. So this is an AI assistant for instant and tailored sales content that the sales rep can already use directly on the spot. So when he's talking directly to the customer, he can use Sally to address the questions the customer might have, for example. And the session promised you DBT at scale, right? And this is exactly what we mean by complexity. So we are talking about 1,300 different DBT projects currently active within the Siemens account. So this translated to DBT jobs. We are talking about 70,000 jobs active. And currently we have on a daily basis 915 developers using the tool. And one really important KPI I have brought here, and this is really something which is common for me and the way we work at Siemens is very familiar. But I'm not sure if you use DBT this way as well. So what I mean with this is basically that even if you're using, or someone in Siemens is only working on a use case, it's very common that it needs to act in different projects. And we're talking about, for example, 5.7 projects per user. And this is a really important concept for what I'm about to say. So, and this one goes out to all of you data architects, data engineers, head of departments that need to do those so-called morning checks, right? You get often asked dozens of questions by your stakeholders, by your business, even sometimes by our boss. Questions like, why is my data not there? Where did it break this time? Why isn't the revenue as big as yesterday? So when will the next load come? And basically in the morning, like any other given time of the day, you get, or you have little to no time to get all these questions sorted out and to give solutions for all of these problems. And while DBT is incredibly powerful when it comes to data transformations, and I guess you all agree with that, otherwise you wouldn't be here today, its project-specific nature makes it very complex to have an overview of the entire ecosystem, especially when you're talking about huge organizations, and especially when you're talking about users and developers that are assigned to different projects. So you need to have tabs open on all these different projects, which is obviously not so easy. And the way we found to address this issue was by using the DBT Cloud API. So this is not the Discovery API, which was just presented last year, I think. This one is not even as powerful as the other one, but it gives us exactly what we need. So metadata about environments, jobs, users, runs. This is exactly what we need. And here is just a representation of a simple pipeline we created. So the data starts obviously in the API. We go get it with an AWS Lambda function. We then store it on an S3 bucket. We go get the data with the combination of DBT and Snowflake. So I'm pretty sure everyone, or at least part of you, knows what are the external tables package. We are using that one to bring the data to Snowflake. And we just build a nice view on top and then provide it to Power BI to create a dashboard for us. And I just wanted to give you a glimpse of the dashboard we created, right? So this is our landing page, where you have a Gantt chart, where you can see all of your projects with all of the single tasks that I've run. So exactly where they started, well, when they started, when they finished, if they went fine or not. And then we have a summary page where you can have all the KPIs you want, right? So about duration, about the projects, about activeness, everything in here. We have as well a page dedicated to the runs, where you can see, for example, just an example, when the jobs are scheduled, if it is on a daily basis, if it is weekly, probably hourly basis. Then you have a page dedicated also to the runs. And if you want more details on every single property of a job, of a task, you have a space just for that. And what we also included in this one is the possibility to jump directly into the DBT run page just by pressing on a button. So this is exactly what we use as a centralized health monitoring tool. So here you can have a status of all your performance metrics. So you have cross-project visibility, which I believe you don't get anywhere else, at least that I know. It's easy to track the errors, it's easy to assure for data freshness, and most important of all, so this one you just seen, it's meant to be used by the data projects teams, but you can also make it visible for your stakeholders, for your end users. So give them visibility on what's going on under the hood. And this is exactly how we run DBT at scale. So this would actually be all from me. I hope you enjoyed this. I just want to thank you all for being here. I want to thank DBT. And yeah, thanks a lot, everyone. Exactly. So basically the question was, how do we run this at scale when I'm talking about 300 projects in different. So obviously who created the tool is not having access to everything at the same time, right? So it is split across the different teams. Every single, let's call it data architect within their own data domain, they need to take care of their own. So that's how we split according to this data mesh principles, let's say. Hope that answers. You mean using DBT or just for the?
Just in terms of your project management. If you need two projects that basically a dependency for project A to project B, how do you manage that?
Exactly. So let's think, for example, DOM sales, which is a project that we gather all the sales data, and then all of the different sales related projects they consume from it. So there's also the cases where they don't need to have access, or the users, the developers don't need to have access directly. But if they need so, how we handle that under the hood, it's basically by the Snowflake accesses. Thank you.
The dashboard that you were just showing, right? So does that use DBT Cloud or Core for pulling up the environments and job specifications?
Okay. So the question was if we use DBT Cloud or DBT Core, right? So basically we are just using DBT Cloud. We had never tried even DBT Core at Siemens. Or we tried it in the first place, but then it's so much easier to use the other one. I think, sorry.
If anyone is providing the consolidated view of all the projects at the higher level, who is covering that model?
Sorry, I couldn't hear.
The consolidated view of all the models,
Mm-hmm.
is anyone granting the access or anyone taking care of that? Or is
Yep. So basically there's one, let's call it product manager for the whole DBT stuff within Siemens. And he has the overview of everything. And he basically then decides on the accesses based on the access they have in Snowflake. That's currently how it works.
So I have a question about how you're managing your environment. As you're saying that you have so many developers doing the development, so how you divide your work? Because DBT
So there obviously needs to be a lot of alignment, right? So when we're talking about similar sources that we need to use, obviously there's one team that should work on that. Otherwise, it's just split it across the different use cases, and then no one is working on the same models, hopefully.
Let's say two teams, they want
Mhm.
the same data, and your source team is making changes. So how do you manage that kind of things?
So the question is how we handle when there's different teams that need to do adjustments on the same source. So they either agree on do not doing disruptive changes, which is most of the times the case, or they need to agree what they need to do. They compare versions and they do different versions of the same data, for example. Thanks. Okay, I think there were two more.
How do you manage like redundancies and duplicative work? Like, do you try to make sure that there is zero redundancy ever? For example, someone consuming that sales data creates some sales amount measure, and then somebody else does the same sales amount measure. Do you
Well,
have any sort of semantic layer in there involved?
We're still not using semantic layer. What we do have is a marketplace where we put that data to sale, right? Most of the cases not paid for, but yeah, so that's how we know. So before you start your pipeline, before you start getting these sources or this data, you just check on the marketplace. If it's there, you use it. If it's not, you are able to create your own. But that was a good question, thanks.
Besides this topic of observability, what other issues of using dbt at scale have you encountered in the cloud?
With dbt. One of the things is, so cross-project is one thing. Another thing is, for example, I think in dbt you don't have a way to check what are the, so for example, all of your jobs. So let's imagine one project has, I don't know, 15 different jobs. You don't have a way to check whether they are scheduled, whether they are active. You either need to go through the steps or there's no other way to do it. And with this use case or with this dashboard, you can do that. Also, for example, I think this one is not addressing that, but for example, when you use, for example, I don't know if you're doing that, but whenever I need to run something which is not meant to be scheduled, I create a job that's called, I don't know, one-time run or something. And for you, in order to have a log and to check which of the dbt commands run, you need to go through each step of the lines, right? And this is not helpful. Again, thanks a lot, everyone.